Ross, we're in this sort of twilight zone of we're talking about back-to-back surpluses almost as a certainty, but it's still clearly a structural deficit because the terms of trade won't necessarily last, and also big spending pressures are still looming there, aren't they?
Yeah, there's no doubt. But even if you go back to those stage three tax cuts, bear in mind that by the time unemployment starts to rise and households are feeling pressure, that those stage 3 tax cuts for many people will be required, and they may take some pressure off the Reserve Bank from having to really move interest rates to really, if you like, be the buffer for the economy. And for once, the government will actually be stepping in to do some of the lifting. But one point I want to show you here, and there's just a graphic we pulled out, which is about warnings from this particular statement. And this is really quite telling, that says the government, there are substantial risks to this outlook. So in other words, the Treasurer kind of said this in the press conference as well. Households have built up significant household buffers through the pandemic, may support spending in the near term through a lower savings rate, which we can see has already happened because it's savings rate getting down to zero. But many households are feeling acute budget pressures and spending has been weaker than expected to date. Now, this is where going into an election, the government really has got to build something of a buffer for itself. Inflation could be more persistent, which could further weigh on household budgets. So therefore, this opens up the concept that the government is going to itself hand out significant amounts of household relief to those people, because if all of a sudden the cost of living affects them and makes them unhappy with the government, we've seen it happen in state governments in recent times, in Queensland and also in Victoria, the polls can change very, very quickly. And that's why I think that Jim Chalmers will be highly alert to any change in the political landscape, which could therefore lead to using some of these buffers that they've got in the budget to effectively try and give some of that cost of living relief, which we saw the Queensland Premier do with free rego, his very first act as the would-be Premier.
Yeah, the issue is that the lowest cohort is the one that needs it the most, and also giving money to the lowest cohort, or the lower cohorts, tends to be the most inflationary. Good luck with that issue. All right, for people just tuning in, we need the 30-second take on what we've heard today. Let's begin with you, Andrew.
Well, what you've seen is a likely surplus, no cost of living relief, and that pretty much sums it up. I think we knew it the whole time, last week at least, Tom.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. No surprises. Yeah, no surprises. I don't think a likely surplus. I think you can bank that. I think an over-cautious Treasurer when it comes to that one. And look, this is a traditional budget update. Not much to see here. Looking forward to next year's budget, Tom.
I will make this point, Tom, and that is that essentially they are hoping inflation lands a bit into stage 3 tax cuts, into their election promises, election win. That's the strategy here. Yeah. I mean, let's be blunt about it. There's so much riding on inflation and interest rates over the next 6 months for this government.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's cautious and predictions on a lot of things, but inflation might almost be heroic. Sorry, Ross, your final thoughts?
But part of that I was going to say is just that presumption on unemployment, because that's where hurt comes in the economy, that's where people stop spending, and that's where really, if you like, consumer confidence, which already is a terrible low in Australia, gets even worse from here. So really, in other words, the government has somehow got to keep the mood of the people up, because if the people get grumpy, they don't like governments either.
All right, I'll let you get away, Ross, and find any other elements that might be making people grumpy over this MYEFO. Andrew, Laura, Ross, thank you.